because she knew what was happening. And then she had the nerve to clean up the crime scene. Like, lock her up and throw away the key, okay? Hey y'all, welcome and/or welcome back to my channel. My name is Janae, if you didn't know, and today's video is another true crime episode. So if you're ready, let's go. All right, y'all. So real quick before we jump into today's case, I can't start this video without saying thank you so much to Kennedy Myers from True Crime Ken, her true crime channel. She commented and liked one of my videos. I don't know if she liked it, but she watched one of my videos and she commented, and she also shared my video. And I recorded today's video before I uploaded the video that she shared. And so I just wanted to slide that in here. And I got a lot of new subscribers from her sharing my video. So thank you, girl. Hey. And if y'all came over here from Kennedy's channel, leave a comment, say hi, and yeah, welcome to the channel, y'all. But yeah, so I had to slide that in here right quick, and we can go back to the regular video. But with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into today's case. And y'all, I've been wanting to do this case since I started my channel, but I had to figure out how I wanted to do it because it's a lot. It's a lot of moving parts in this case, so I'm really going to need y'all to keep up. But this is actually a case that a lot of people know about and a lot of people have heard about. But I'm surprised that not more true crime channels have covered it, but I really wanted to talk about it. So yeah, let's just jump right into it. And today we are going to be talking about Courtney Palmer. So Courtney Palmer was born to Aaron Palmer Jr. and Deborah Wooden on June 18th, 1993 in Los Angeles, California. And they would live in LA until Courtney was about 9 years old. And it's at that time that his family picked up and moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma, where the events of today's case takes place. And growing up, Courtney was the type of kid who loved to play around. He was the jokester. He always had somebody laughing, even from a very young age. He loved to make other people laugh. And he also liked to build small cars. And he would do this with just about anything. If you could make a car out of it, Courtney was doing that. He could be in a restaurant with his mama and he was picking up straws, napkins, lids to the cups, and building a car with it. Really just a true kid's kid. But unfortunately, Courtney's parents wouldn't stay together. They decided to go their separate ways. And I'm not sure if this happened before they moved to Tulsa or after, but I do know that his parents didn't stay together. And I really don't know how and if they break up affected Courtney at all, but I would assume that it did, because most of the time when kids' parents aren't together, they are affected in some way, shape, or form, whether that be affected positively or negatively. But like I said, I don't know how them not being together affected Courtney. But nonetheless, Courtney did end up graduating high school. And I'm not 100% sure when this happened, whether it happened while he was still in school or if it happened afterwards. But Courtney would start to get into a little bit of trouble. And he would have a couple of run-ins with the law for things like petty theft, assault of his girlfriends, and stuff like that. He also started to dabble in drug activity. And if I'm not mistaken, he was also battling with depression and other mental health illnesses. So that combined with his drug use just didn't make for a good combination. But no matter what Courtney was going through in life, he still remained a light in everybody's life that he was around. He was always still making people laugh. He was always joking around, having fun, and he was pretty much always just the light in any room that he was in. His mom actually said that she think he missed his calling to be a comedian because the boy was just naturally funny. And once he became a dad, he really didn't get too much more serious. He was still always playing, joking, having a good time. But one thing he did not play about though was them babies. He would play about everything else, but he wasn't playing about them kids. And he will have had 3 kids by the time he was 23 years old. And Courtney wanted nothing more than to love on his babies and to be there to watch them grow up. Unfortunately though, Courtney would not get the chance to be around to watch his children grow and blossom into adults. And this tragic chain of events all started on election night of 2016. So it's November 8th, 2016, and this is the race for Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. And y'all know this was an intense election, so everybody's sitting there watching, waiting for the votes to come in, trying to see who is about to be our next president, when a patrol officer who was at a gas station heard gunshots coming from an apartment complex. And this apartment complex was called the Tamarack Apartments. So he responds to the place where he believes he heard shots fired, and he was indeed correct. And he winds up finding a man on the ground covered in blood, having been shot multiple times. Now, the man is still alive, but he's in pretty bad shape, obviously. He just got shot a couple times. And so the paramedics are called and he is rushed off to the hospital. And the man who was shot is identified as 39-year-old Carl Harris, who goes by Duke. So once Duke is at the hospital, the detectives are called over to come process this scene because they got to figure out what the heck happened, and they need to see who they are about to charge for attempted murder. And if Duke just so happens to pass away, they need to figure out who they charge with murder. So they start doing their investigation and they found the apartment that the shooting happened in. And once they go inside the apartment, they ended up finding shell casings in not only the living room, but the bedroom as well. And they also find bullet holes going through the wall of the bedroom. So they do believe that the bedroom is where this all started. And so they find the people who live in the apartment and Duke's girlfriend, and they want to bring them all in for questioning. And Duke's girlfriend said that Duke let Courtney borrow his gold Monte Carlo, and immediately upon hearing Courtney's name, the detective knows who she's talking about. He confirms that she's talking about Courtney Palmer. And like I said, he knows who Courtney is because he's had a couple run-ins with him. And so the girlfriend goes on to say that Courtney came back to her and Duke's apartment without Duke's car. And Duke was like, you know, where's my car? You left with my car, but you walking back. Where's my car? And Courtney told them that somebody had took the keys from him. And so Duke is like, okay, so where my keys at? Because we got to go get them back. And so the girlfriend drives Courtney and Duke over to the apartment complex where the keys got taken. And she said that they knew that this was the right apartment because they saw the gold Monte Carlo still sitting outside. And that's when this whole debacle happens. They knock on the door. Duke goes in, and the next thing she knows is gunshots. So she runs, but then realizes that Duke had been shot, and so she goes back to take care of him. But she says she don't know who opened the door because when the door was open, she was a little bit down the street, not too far away, but not close enough to see who had opened the door. And while the girlfriend was in the interview room, she actually ended up getting a call from the hospital or from Duke's family. And they told her that Duke had made it out of surgery and that he was stable, but they was just going to keep monitoring his progression or condition still because he wasn't completely out of the woods yet, but for now he was stable. And now detectives really need to find out who this shooter was so that they can go ahead and slap them with this attempted murder charge. So now they want to actually talk to the people who was inside the apartment, because if anybody know who opened that door, it would be the people who was in the apartment. And so while they're talking to the lady who was in the apartment, she says it was her, two of her friends, and their kids. There was 5 kids in total. She pretty much just said that somebody started kicking on the door busted open, and they ran into the bathroom, and then next thing she knows, she heard gunshots. But she don't know who the shooter was, and she swears up and down that there was not a man in that house. But the detectives really ain't going for that. They like, okay, so if y'all was in the bathroom, and all of y'all was in the bathroom, then who shot him? Because it just wasn't nobody who shot him, because somebody shot the man. But she's pretty insistent that she don't know who shot him, and that there was no man in the house. And so now as she's being interviewed, the detective ends up getting the call. And this call is from the hospital. And the hospital said that a man just came in saying that he had information about the shooting. And this person's name is Courtney Palmer. So detectives are like, yes, we want to talk to him. Now in this interview room, you can see that Courtney is clearly agitated, fidgety, scared, just very uneasy. And he said that Duke was just trying to help him. He just was trying to get the keys back. And he said that he was scared because word on the street was that he set Duke up to be shot. And he was trying to prove that no, that wasn't the case. I just wanted to get the keys back and Duke was over there to help me. Courtney was very adamant that he did not set Duke up and that he needed the police to get the whole story out. And he really just wanted to prove that he didn't set Duke up because people would really be out here looking to retaliate against him for thinking that he set this up. And so the detective asked him, okay, what happened? And Courtney pretty much mirrors the story that Duke's girlfriend told. But he says that he did see the shooter, and he said that the shooter was a guy named Teddy. So after he gives the detective all of this information, Courtney asks him like, hey, can you help me get to California with my sister because I need to go? He wanted the detective to buy him a plane ticket, a bus ticket, a train ticket. Any way he could. He was asking the detective, could he please help get him to California? But unfortunately, the detective said that that wasn't possible. And because of Courtney's demeanor, the detective thought that Courtney might have been high on something, but Courtney said he wasn't. He said that he had just been off his meds. So the detective told him to pretty much just go home, stay home, take your meds, and we're going to revisit this when, you know, you're feeling better. Now, in an effort to corroborate Courtney's story, detectives go and find the person who Courtney says took his keys from him. And when she was questioned, she basically said that yes, she was at the apartment complex prior to the shooting happening, and she saw Courtney driving the gold Monte Carlo, you know, swerving in the parking lot, looking like he was about to hit stuff. And when he got out of the car, he seemed like he was clearly under the influence. And she didn't want him to hurt himself or nobody else. And so she took the keys from him. She snatched the keys from him and told him, like, look, you'll get these back when you sober up, because you're not about to be out here wilding like this, putting yourself and everybody else around you in danger. And once she took the keys, she went into the apartment that the shooting happened. But she said she left prior to Courtney and Duke coming, and so she wasn't there when the shooting happened. And while she was there, it was just her, the other 3 women, and the kids there. She said it wasn't no man there, and she don't know who Teddy is. So while detectives are waiting for Courtney to kind of like calm down, sober up, and or take his meds, they ended up getting a call 4 days after the shooting happened. And this call is from a man claiming he was at the apartment when the shooting happens. So immediately, you know, they want to go pick him up. And as soon as he get into the interview room, he tells them straight up, like, look, it was me. I shot him. I'm sorry. It was me. Let me tell you what happened. He said that he had just got home and pretty much just locked the door when he started hearing banging or kicking on the door. And so he like, what the fuck? And then all of a sudden he hears his bedroom window shatter. And so he kind of cracked the door and opened it and like, hey, yo, chill out. It's kids in here. And this person who was at the door was like, fuck them kids, and kind of pushed their way into the house. Now, this man, he said he had never seen the person who was at his door before, and now they all of a sudden in his house. Now, we know this man to be Duke, but that man didn't know that. And so he's like, this person is in my house. I don't know what they here for, to rob, steal, kill. I have no idea. And so he headed to his bedroom where he keeps his gun. And as soon as he turned around, Duke was at his bedroom door. And so now this man is all the way in my house. And like I said, he didn't know if Duke was there to rob him or what. And so he just immediately started shooting. And so that's how Duke ended up being shot. And when the detective asked him, like, why you didn't come forward sooner, he said that he was scared. But once he calmed down and started processing the whole situation, he realized that he didn't really do nothing wrong. And that's when he decided to come forward. And so they decided to let him go and then turn the case over to the DA to see if they are going to prosecute him or not. And this is where shit gets sick and twisted and really just sad. So it's been a week and a half since the shooting, and Crime Stoppers gets a phone call. And this caller says that Courtney was murdered in retaliation for Duke's shooting. And this really just confirms Courtney's fear of people thinking that he set Duke up. So because of this tip, the detective decides to call Courtney's mom to see if she had heard from him. And she says that no, she actually hadn't seen Courtney since about the 10th of November. And at this point, it's like the 18th or the 19th. And she said that he usually called her pretty much every day, even if just to say I love you. And she said that she was worried, but you know, he did say that he was afraid that people would retaliate against him. So maybe he was hiding out. Maybe he didn't want to contact anybody because he didn't want nobody to know where he was at. But it definitely was not like him to not call her. So the fact that his mom hadn't heard from him, plus this tip, the detective started to get worried himself because he too hadn't heard from Courtney. So he decided that he would classify Courtney as a missing person and put the information about his disappearance on the news.
Tulsa homicide detectives say a witness to a recent shooting has disappeared. Investigators say Courtney Palmer hasn't been seen or heard from for 8 days.
And he was hoping that by doing this, if Courtney was in hiding, he would potentially see this and come out and say that he was all right, or that he would at least get a little bit more information about Courtney's disappearance. So in the meantime, while they wait for more tips about Courtney's disappearance, they ended up finding the person who called Crime Stoppers. And what she told detectives pretty much boiled down to Courtney being taken care of at a lady named Charlita Mack's house. So with this information, the detectives obtained a search warrant for the bathroom of Charlita's house because that's where this tipster said everything, whatever happened to Courtney, that's where it happened at. And so they head over to execute the search warrant on November 23rd, 2016, and they head straight for the bathroom, spray that thing up with luminol, and what do you know? It lit up like a damn Christmas tree, indicating that there had been or was still blood inside of that bathroom. And so because of this, they take Charlita, her 18-year-old son James, and his 19-year-old girlfriend Janetta in for questioning. And they start with Janetta. And Janetta says that she doesn't know what happened to Courtney. She do know Courtney, but she don't know what happened to him. Last time she's seen or heard from him was on Halloween at Charlita's house, but after that she has no idea. And so with pretty much getting nothing out of her, they move on to James. And James mirrors Janetta's story. He said that Last time he seen Courtney was on October 31st at his mom's house. He don't know what happened to him after that. But the detectives was like, okay, well, you saying that, but your bathroom is saying something different. And he showed the picture of the bathroom with the luminol in it. And he's like, you see all those lit up spots? That's blood. And do you have anything else to say? And James was like, you know what? I do, because I'm not about to go to jail for nobody else. And so James come up off a little bit of information, and he said that Courtney, Charletta's friend Gerald, and Gerald's girlfriend was all hanging out in the living room while him and his girlfriend was in his room. But this is nothing out of the ordinary. People come over by the house all the time. So he didn't really think too much of it. But then all of a sudden he heard screaming, and he came out of his room like, what the hell is going on here? And that's when he sees Courtney balled up in the bathtub. Then he hears Gerald's girlfriend yell, "You got my cousin shot," more than likely referring to Duke. And then he just sees her start to beat up on Courtney. Now mind y'all, all of this is taking place on November 10th. This is 2 days after Duke was shot. And so this is before all of the details came out about what actually happened. They don't know none of that yet. All they know is that Duke is shot and in the hospital. And they think that Courtney set him up. And James goes on to say that from what he can remember, the girlfriend left the house at some point and went to Quick Trip to go get some ice. And when she came back, she and Gerald continued to beat on Courtney. They set him in an ice bath, and they pretty much proceeded to torture Courtney from late that evening into the early hours of the morning. And Courtney left the house wrapped up in a blanket or in a cover and inside of a tote. And James said that he was unsure if Courtney was alive at this point, but he was beaten up pretty bad. And he also said that they put the tote inside of Gerald's white pickup truck and left, but he don't know where they went with him. So with all of this new information that they just received from James, they go to question Charlita, the person whose house it was. And when they get into the room with Charlita, the detective is pretty much over it. He want to know what the hell happened to Courtney, and he's not really about to listen to her lie. So he just comes straight out the gate like, look, your son already told me what's up. I really don't have time for you to be trying to lie. So what's up? And at that point, Charlita pretty much just tells them what she saw, and everything that she says pretty much mirrors her son's story. But the detective wants to know, if those two did it and then left, who cleaned up the bathroom? Like, how your bathroom get clean? And Charlita was like, oh, I cleaned up the bathroom. And they really could have arrested her right then and there for being an accessory after the fact and cleaning up a crime scene. But they didn't do that because they needed her. They wanted to know what happened to Courtney after he left that house, and they wanted to identify Gerald's girlfriend, because up until this point, nobody has said this girlfriend's name. Everybody keeps saying the girl, and nobody knows her name. And I'm just confused because you're not about to be up in my house and I don't even bother to ask what your name is. But nonetheless, nobody knew this girl's name, and they wanted Charlita to help them identify her and find out what happened to Courtney. So the next step in the investigation is to go pull the CCTV footage from the Quick Trip on the night of the 10th. And the hope is that they see somebody matching the description of the girl and or this white truck. And as they're combing through the footage for that night, they come across something a little bit better than just somebody matching the description of the girl. They actually see Janetta. Y'all remember Janetta, James's girlfriend? I know nothing, Janetta? Yeah, her. They see her, and she is getting out of a white truck with someone who matches the description of the girl. So the detectives keep watching this footage because now they want to know. So as the footage continue on, Janetta and the woman goes into the Quick Trip, and sure enough, they buy 4 bags of ice along with donuts, cookies, and shit. Like, y'all are out here buying snacks. Meanwhile, Courtney is at this house beaten, bruised, battered, and damn near on the brink of death. And y'all trying to get snacks in the midst of getting something to aid in his torture? Okay. So at this point, detectives realize that Janetta is way more involved in whatever happened to Courtney than she let on. And detectives also get another vital piece of information from this CCTV footage, because they see the truck that Janetta and this woman got out of, and they notice that the truck got substantial front end damage and like a big long scratch on the hood of it. And so this will make the truck easily identifiable if they came across it. Unfortunately, they wasn't able to get a license plate to see who the truck was registered to, but they had a good idea that the truck belonged to Gerald based off what James and Charlita said. So now that they have an accurate description of the truck, detectives decide to head to Summit, Oklahoma, which is a very small town about an hour away from Tulsa. And when I say a very small town. I mean small town. And I'm talking population of 139 in 2010 and a population of 108 in 2020. Type of small town. Okay, so I mean like pew, pew, very little. And the reason that they decided to go up there was because the person who called in the Crime Stoppers tip, they also said that the rumor was that Courtney had been taken to Summit and fed to the pigs. And they knew that Gerald had connections to Summit, and the white truck supposedly belonged to Gerald. So if it was his truck and his town, then they could potentially find the truck in Summit and then hopefully find Courtney. However, when they got to Summit, they was unable to find the truck. But what they did see was a whole shit ton of pigs. And so this being fed to the pigs theory was kind of starting to feel a little bit more plausible for them. And once they got back to Tulsa, a tip came in about where Gerald and his girlfriend could potentially be staying. But when they got to the house, Gerald and his girlfriend was gone. However, there was another woman in the house who said that they were staying there, but they had moved out 3 days prior. And the person was actually able to identify Gerald's girlfriend based off of a still shot from the QT footage. And so finally, they had a name to Gerald's girlfriend, and her name was Michaela Riddle. But instead of calling Michaela and telling her like, hey, yeah, we on your ass, they just decided to pull up Michaela's phone records because hopefully she had been using her phone like an idiot and it could tell them where she was. But obviously that wasn't going to happen overnight, but they was willing to wait patiently. And in the meantime, they drew up some nice little arrest warrants for Michaela, Gerald, and Janetta because Janetta lied to them and she was an accessory at this point. However, the arrest warrants weren't for the murder of Courtney because they didn't have a body and he was still technically only a missing person because there was no actual proof of his death, even though it was looking like he was no longer alive. So they ended up getting the arrest warrant on assault and battery with intent to kill. So a couple days later, Michaela's cell phone records come in and they was able to get a general idea of the area in which she was staying. And so they decided to pretty much just ride around in that general vicinity and see if they could come across this white GMC. And eventually they do end up coming up on this truck, and it was parked in an apartment complex. However, since it was in an apartment complex, they didn't know what apartment she and potentially Gerald as well would be in. And so they pretty much decided to have a stakeout and wait to see if anybody would come to the truck and or to find out which apartment they would be in. And while they was on a stakeout, Janetta must have got word that she was wanted because she ended up turning herself in. And this time she told the whole truth. She told the complete truth. She spilled all the beans on Gerald and Michaela. And some of the details that she gave and some of the stuff that she said happened to Courtney is absolutely sick. And because of her involvement in getting the ice and lying to police initially, Janetta ended up being charged. So while Janetta is being arrested, back at the stakeout, they find out what apartment Gerald and Michaela are staying in. And they're able to execute their warrant, and Michaela Riddle and Gerald Lowe are arrested and taken down for questioning. And Michaela, she decides to play dumb. She don't know nothing. She don't know what they're talking about. She don't even know Courtney. She knows nothing, okay? She is very combative. She not giving up nothing. And so they figured that it's pointless to talk to her, and they decide to go talk to Gerald. And Gerald, he plays sick. His stomach hurt. He got the boo-boo. He in so much pain. He can't talk. And he declines to interview without counsel. And so pretty much he lawyered up and they couldn't talk to him. But they didn't need them to talk in order to book them into the jail because they had way more than enough evidence. And so they was promptly booked into the jail. So now that they got the main parties involved in custody, they are determined to find Courtney. And so they decide to put out the fact that Courtney may have been fed to the pigs up in Summit in Muskogee County in hopes of leading to some more tips.
Tulsa homicide detectives say that they're investigating a very disturbing lead. They think that a man who witnessed a shooting last month in South Tulsa is dead, and there are rumors that his body was fed to hogs.
And a tip does in fact come in from a guy in Summit who said that he knows Gerald and that Gerald had lived in Summit for some time before he was evicted from his place. And after he was evicted from his place, this man hadn't seen Gerald in months. But about 3 weeks ago, he saw Gerald and a woman in Summit, and they was around the property that Gerald used to stay at. And Gerald and this woman was around that property doing he don't know what. But once he saw the news broadcast, he figured that he would call in and tell what he saw. And he also told the detectives where the property was. And so on December 15, 2016, detectives headed back out to Summit, and they headed to the property that the man identified as Gerald's former property. And in the back of the property, they found a burn pit. And inside of this burn pit appeared to be human remains. And these human remains they believed to be Courtney's. However, they couldn't be 100% certain until they were sent off for testing. But they were pretty sure that this was going to be Courtney. And unfortunately, those remains were identified as those of 23-year-old Courtney Palmer. And as for the people involved in Courtney's death, Gerald Lowe ended up pleading guilty to first-degree murder and was sentenced to life in prison. Michaela Riddle, she denied it to the end. She went to trial, and she was convicted of second-degree murder, and she was sentenced to 49 years in prison. And I do believe she tried to appeal it, but they upheld her sentence. She got 49 years. And Charletha Mack, she was arrested and she pled guilty to accessory to murder because, you know, she had allowed this to happen in her home. And I forgot to tell y'all that Courtney was Charletha's niece's baby's daddy, right? Y'all with me? Courtney and Charletha's niece have a child together. So she allowed the father of her great niece to be murdered in her home. What? Like I said, she pled guilty to accessory and she got 20 years. Now, on one source, I did read that 20 years was broken down into a 2-year prison sentence, and then the other 18 years she would be under the Oklahoma Department of Corrections supervision, which sounds like she would be out of jail. And quite frankly, I hope that that's not the case. I hope that she got 20 years in prison. But like I said, that was only on one source. I'm not sure. I hope that's not true because she knew what was happening. And then she had the nerve to clean up the crime scene, like lock her up and throw away the key, okay? And as for Janetta, the charges against her was dropped. And then for the man who shot Duke, because remember, all of this started because Duke got shot. The man who shot him, the DA decided that he acted in self-defense and no charges were pressed against him. And that is the saddest part about this case, is that Courtney died for no reason. Courtney was tortured for no reason. He didn't set up Duke. It was all a misunderstanding. This all happened from somebody trying to do a good deed because she didn't want Courtney to hurt himself or somebody else. And then the fact that Courtney asked for help. He asked to be sent to California. He asked to be sent away. The very least that the detective could have done was put him under 24-hour surveillance or put him into, not witness protection because that's a lot, but what's it called? In protective custody. This did not have to happen to him. Now there's 3 kids out there without a father. There's a mother without her son, and all for nothing. But yeah, y'all, let me know what y'all thought about today's case. Thank you all so very much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you like this type of content, and I will see you all in the next one. Anything he could do. He was probably making the cup. Bleh. And I'm not sure if this happened before Courtney moved to LA. I mean, before Courtney moved. Ugh. Because most of the time when children's parents aren't together, whether they wasn't together, no. And y'all know this was an intense, election. So, come on, girl. Whew. I'm probably gonna call him Duke for the rest of this trial, girl, you is not a lawyer. And they knew that this was the right apartment because the gold mine. And as soon as he turned around, Duke was at his. What is that? At his what? Bedroom door. And so hearing that his mom hadn't heard of her, no. But in the meantime, they found, no. Yes. It lit up like a Christmas tree. Just, what? It lit up like a Christmas tree. Oh, yeah. And then he hears Gerald's girlfriend hollering, "You got my cousin shot." No, why I say it like that? So the hope is that they can find